Our last speaker is Olivier Heuberger Gotsch. Now we switch a little bit the view. He won't tell you a lot about analytics, but now more on the issue of law and ethics. Olivier Heuberger is a lawyer, mainly active in the field of ICT and intellectual property law, with a focus on privacy and data protection law, licensing, internet and software law. Olivier Heuberger made his bar exam in 2012 and is since then working as a lawyer in Zurich and as legal counsel for, again, how is it? Specialty. It's up here. He is currently writing his PhD thesis on IT law at the University of Lucerne. So you see now we will have a very, very different perspective on the issue of data science, but actually it is sometimes very important how it influences our work. So privacy in the big data area.
Thank you for this nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to give you some legal aspects with regard to big data or algorithms. So what will you expect in the next approximately 20 minutes? First, I give you a short introduction where I'm standing with respect to technology and with respect to legal. And this leads to the question, what is big data from a legal perspective? And this then is the question, what is the profiling? What is this for a method? And with that, what are the questions with respect to legal questions to the profiling with respect to privacy and data protection? And as a last point, who are these? Where are we? Which answers could be given? Which answers are still open? And what's the road before us? So data have become a torrent flowing into every area of our life. How we communicate, how we spend leisure time, how we use our media, how we conduct business has dramatically changed into the internet. And the internet has in turn moved into our smartphones, in our tablets, in our wearables, into our devices spreading around our homes and cities, into factories and offices. And so the resulting explosion of data and discovery is changing our world. As we look at this dynamic change in our data-driven world, we see a global dialogue polarized along competing but fundamental principles, pull it in a variety of directions. Industry, government, and also civil society are unclear on how to find a balance between the interest of privacy and data protection and the interest of companies using their data. Now, as an either larger amount of data is digitized and travel across organizational boundaries, there is a set of policy issues that will become increasingly important, but with respect to privacy and data protection, but not limited to. There are legal fields which are important, such as liability, intellectual property issues. For example, what data can be used by a company? How can they use data? Can they use sensitive data, for example? How is it if a company use normal data but in combination of this data they have sensitive information? Who owns a piece of data? And at last, who is responsible if data is not correct and therefore somebody will be damaged? We from Skychility try to address these technological and legal issues, combine them and provide a governance framework and to help our clients to find here good solutions. And I'm very proud to give you some insight in this process today. So, big data. The question I often hear, and the first question I often hear from our customers is, what's this big data all about? What's the matter with it? We already have a superb IT infrastructure. Why do we have to change it or adopt it? And I understand this objection. However, the question is not if there is an optimized IT infrastructure today, but if there is one tomorrow. By defining deter big data? It very depends on the stakeholder. What do we understand from a legal perspective from big data? The classical approach is coming from Gartner and McKinsey. They understand big data as high volume, high velocity, and high variety. Information assets that demand cost-effective, innovative forms of information processing for enhanced insight and decision-making. A more technical approach comes from computer scientists, like a term describing a storage and analysis of large and/or complex data sets using a series of techniques, including but not limited to NoSQL, Hadoop, MapReduce, Impala, etc. Now we see, for the time being, there is no final definition of big data. And some of my colleagues, lawyers, said, well, nevertheless, it's absolutely unnecessary to define it because it's just technology. I don't share this opinion because, as a lawyer, I'm very confident to have a definition, and with that big definition, I can handle a specific case. So I think that it's very important to find here a definition. In a privacy context, the term big data typically means data about an individual or a group that might be analyzed to make a correlation about an individual or a group. So to make a correlation between data and then the analyzing of this data, that's the key element of big data from a legal perspective. And this leads me to the term profiling. I mentioned at the beginning that the way we communicate, how we conduct business, etc. has dramatically changed. What did I mean by that? One of the most challenging issues in our society is that we are faced with an ever-expanding masses of information. We are faced with information from journals, emails, tweets, blogs, phone calls, etc. Now, the selection of the relevant bits of information seems to be become more important than the retrieval of the data as such. If an information society is a society with an exponential proliferation of data, knowledge society must be one that has learned how to cope with this, and profiling technologies seems to be one of the most promising methods to create order in that chaos. What's the definition of profiling? Profiling is a way to generate knowledge by means of algorithms or patterns of correlations between data. The correlation stands for a probability that things will turn out the same in the future, that what they provide is a kind of prediction based on past behavior. A correlation indicates a relation between data without establishing a cause or reasons. I give you here an example. A correlation may be found between people living in a specific neighborhood and having a particular level of income, or a correlation may be found between people having a specific skin type and the disease diabetes. What is happening that those people build a category having specific attributes, and other people, not in this group, have the same categories, the same attributes, and with that a prediction of future behavior may be possible. So the purpose of profiling is to predict one's future behavior based on correlations. The problem of this approach is that it extrapolates from the past to the future based on blind correlations, tending to see the future, determined by established probabilities, and possibly disabling potential better solutions. As Niels Bohr already in 1976 said, it's difficult to predict, especially the future. Now, as a lawyer, I ask myself, what law is applicable? What are the threats to privacy? Can someone consent to such a data analysis? Is the concept of anonymization of personal data sufficient? In short, what is the balance between the interest of everyone's privacy and the interest of company using their data? And we at Skychility combine those questions in this so-called governance framework where we respect to technology, IT security, customer review, and legal aspects. And I'd like to provide you today with some aspects of privacy and data protection. First, the question is then, well, what law is applicable? Obviously, the data protection law, because we proceed with data, but there are other laws too. Now, with respect to the data protection law, or the Federal Act on Data Protection, this law, the protection law, does only apply on processing of personal data, meaning any information relating to an identified or identifiable individual. Other data than personal data is out of scope of this law. Now, one person is identified by a specific information related to that person, example by the name in the passport or the social security number. More interesting is when is a person identifiable. An identifiable person is one who can be identified directly or indirectly, in particular by reference to an identification number or to one or more factors specific to his physical, physiological, mental, economical, cultural or social identity, in short, with context information. If one individual is identifiable, it has to be answered in each specific case. And the Swiss Federal Supreme Court said that to determine this, it has to be asked two questions. First, must, according to one's experience, be expected that someone will take enough time and money to identify a person? And second, what kind of data are the basis for an identification? Well, these two requirements were probably okay in the 80s, where the Swiss data protection law was set in force. However, with big data analytics, these two requirements are quite unclear, because today with Hadoop, Impala, etc., and other big data technologies, it's absolutely possible to proceed a huge amount of data, and it's absolutely possible to identify a person with context information, and this cheaper than as it was possibly before. Now, one possibility to bypass the law would then be to anonymize data. So as long as the data are fully anonymous, the data protection law would not be applicable. In the process of anonymization, the data itself would be there, but some pieces then would be removed or would then be removed, such as name, address, etc., gender, age, etc. The issue with anonymization is the re-anonymization. With big data technologies or algorithms, it's absolutely possible with respect to time and cost to re-anonymize data. Missing pieces like name, gender, age can easily be replaced by other attributes. Now, the Supreme Court does not say that anonymization must absolutely be possible. They say it's okay when there is no reasonable expectation to that someone will take enough time and money to re-anonymize the data. Here again, we see the same argumentation as here, and that's not quite a clear solution for this issue. If we conclude that an anonymization is usually possible or not possible, then the data protection law is also applicable. So how do companies nevertheless use their data? In practice, they inform the data subject about the use of his or her data, provide their consent. The consent is usually given by the terms and conditions of the company. Here an example of such terms and conditions. Now, Google changed recently their terms and conditions with respect to privacy and data protection. Has somebody of you read those terms and conditions? No, usually not. Nobody is reading this. So, how then is it possible that you know, that you are aware of what will be done with your data? That's, in fact, not possible. Consent requires and he freely given a specific informed indication of his wishes by which data the data subject signifies his agreement to personal data relating him being proceed. Consent requires, from a legal point of view, that the data subject is fully aware of the consequences of his decision. Freely given means that the data subject was under no pressure to accept the terms and conditions. Now, fully aware of the consequences means the following. Who is responsible for the data and the data processing? Which categories of data will be processed? For what purpose they are processing? How the processing is done, phases and data flows. To whom data are transferred? That decision of consent is voluntary, and what the consequences of a refusal of the consent, and arbitrary consent may be revoked at any time. Now, by profiling an individual, such an informed consent is usually not possible. The purpose of profiling is to find correlations with algorithms, which are often unclear, fuzzy, and unexpected. There are two interesting data protection principles which I like to focus. According to the collection of personal data and according to the data protection law, personal data may only be processed for the purpose indicated at the time of collection that is evident from the circumstances or that is provided by law. In addition, the collection of personal data, you see this here in paragraph 4, the collection of the personal data and in particular the purpose of its process must be evident to the data subject. I give you here an example. A very famous case in 2012 was the Google Suite case, and the Federal Court in Lausanne decided in its judgment that the purpose of the Google cars with their rooftop cameras is not sufficient to meet the requirements of the duty to provide information, even if the product concerned is very well known, the Google Maps, in the absence of further information. People are simply not aware that the object of the exercise is to travel roads, making photographs, pictures, and publish them into the internet. Now, through big data analysis, data is hardly covered by the purpose indicated at the time of collection of data. The data controller is looking for correlations between the data at the time of processing. In consequence, the data subject cannot be aware of the related data and to what purpose data will be processed. Stephen Hawking said once, the world has changed far more in the past 100 years than in other centuries in history. The reason was not economical, political, but technological. So, where are we in 5 years? The law, we can conclude, the law is once more overtaken by technology. With the opportunities of new algorithms, big data technologies, a bunch of new legal questions emerge and cannot be fully answered through the current legal framework. Therefore, because of that, the actual privacy and data protection law will be reformed. The European Union is making huge progress in that discussion. They have a concrete example how a new legal framework for privacy should be. There are new ideas and concepts in the pipeline, and we assume that Switzerland will follow mostly in this discussion. Now, it's my personal opinion that after the current big data hype, there will be, and there still some are, very interesting business models. And for that reason, the pressure to us lawyers will be higher to provide a workable legal framework. As a last example, driverless cars. To be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, nobody really thought that it would be possible to drive a car without a driver from Lausanne to Geneva. Now we have evidence that it is possible, not only in Switzerland, but in Germany too, and of course in the US. And with that technological improvement, new business models are possible. And with that, new legal questions arise, of course. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the this interesting talk. I'm a little bit confused. Maybe you have questions.
Do you know about European laws when this will be taken into action and really come?
Yeah, well, there is no concrete date, however, or schedule. The discussion, however, is quite far. Now they have a concrete plan.
Okay.
We expect that at the end of 2015 there is, well, hopefully, final version.
Okay.
But when a new law will be set in force, we don't know. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. And Switzerland is another topic too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
More questions? Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, because once you can have the laws about privacy and another thing is the reality, you know. So you are data miner more or less, yes? So it's possible to and it's just a rhetoric question, that, you know, against clever data miner is practically impossible to protect it. I mean that even if you have you know, some medical data or whatever, you just remove the identity, but you will have a pattern of data like you know, trajectory, how he was moving, or events or something like that. So, and even I was acting, you know, in the medical data, and on one hand, people are writing papers like identifying persons on gait patterns, or you know, how they go, how they move, or identifying based on electrocardiogram, and it's purely medical data. Well, so of course you can fuzzify it, but then it is useless and it may, let's say, cause harm to people based on the wrong data. So I say, you know, do you prefer to be re-identified or dead? So if you use the data for research, you need good data. On the other hand, clever guys now, you don't need so much, you know, expenses to know almost everything if you really want.
Well, if I understood your question right, that's the
main
main question
question.
of is anonymization possible or not, and what is the distinction between personal data and the overall data? So, for example, for research or for medicine improvements, medical improvements, then if, as long as a person cannot be identified, that's no problem to use that data. And however, if some company wants to identify a person for segmentation, to buy products to a specific individual, well then this is, with the current legal framework, really an issue.
I don't know, I just remember vaguely a case in the States. They released data in public, it was research data about a social issue which was very sensitive. But the data have been anonymized, so it was not known. 15 years later, with big data, Google and all these things, they were able to identify quite a few of these people. So 15 years ago, everything was okay. But later, about 2 or 3 years ago, it was not okay anymore. So this data, it was good. I mean, the reason was to say, well, the public research, and we collected data and we want to distribute the information. But finally, it ended up that it was a disaster because people got caught in this analysis. So we don't know what is in 15 years. Time from now, what are we doing? So I think it's such a demand on this question, what can we do, and also what kind of data should be available publicly. I mean, particularly if it's personal or in a study or whatever.
We have always be in mind that the data protection law in Switzerland was established in the 80s. And the idea was coming from Germany and also from UK in the 70s. So, and at some point there was no progress. And to say, well, if the concept of anonymization is still workable today, yeah, there are strong indices that it is not, that we have to come to find other solutions. Yeah.
That is Some more? Yes?
Isn't there a fundamental conflict of interest between consumers and companies doing, or organizations doing the analysis? Because I mean, many of the business models rely on the fact that they find out something about us, about consumers, about employees, and so on, where we do not necessarily have an interest. That the fact is known by other people, like sickness or so, or certain information that would be used by employers or so. And I mean, would you agree with that view? And in the legal discussion, is that understood? And how could you resolve that conflict?
Yeah, that's the general problem, to find a balance between those different interests. With respect to labor law, there I would say that's quite clear, because between an employee and an employee you have a contract. And usually, if you agree to a contract with respect to labor law, then you agree that the company is surveying you how you work, how you use internet, for example. And for example, if you use chats, etc. And the company has a big power here to go really deep into these views, as long as it touches the employment contract or the employment sheet. But the other thing is, if you're not an employee of a company, for example, if you're using Facebook, Twitter, etc., and those companies using this data to profile you, to make segments, also sold this data to other companies, then yeah, the situation is quite unclear how to find this balance.
Another question? Yeah.
A little remark, no, because it's not so much the problem of re-identifying, but also of the use. What is the good use? And then, of course, it's the question for the good guys, for the bad guys. And since the last few months, I like this example of the German wings plane, where you have total inversion, of good guys and bad guys. That, for example, this accident, the suicide.
Yes.
Where the bad guy was inside and the good guys were outside. And on the other hand, we are reading now about all medical history of this pilot, and some people complain why didn't we know it before. But of course, according to the laws, before he killed anybody, he was absolutely protected. So he consulted the doctors, and they were obliged not to tell it. And now people, so who are the good guys, the bad guys, and also how harmful it is. Because, for example, if you make a picture now, even often in the newspapers have pictures with, with faces erased. So, but somebody can have some piece of clothes that can be erased. So making pictures in public should be prohibited soon. Or we go back to the old village, 300 years ago, where you had 100 people, and you simply behave decently, because everybody knew everything and you lived with it somehow.
Well, I
for 100,000 years.
Again, the question to find a balance, and I don't think that is a solution to go back 300 years ago. There is also, with this German wings example, the right of other people to have information to this information. And so this is the public opinion, and this is a right too, which has to be considered, not only of this pilot and the family, daughter or child, but also the public.
Okay, let's thank Oliver Heuberger once more, and